What's up, everybody? It's Old Man Winter 8, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the triple camber from Never Summer. Something that when I first saw it, as I think a lot of people did, they all kind of went, wait, what? Because it kind of came out at a time when the rockers and the profiles, the different hybrids and everything, people were really starting to figure it out and really kind of get it dialed in exactly where they wanted it, whether you did full camber, you did rocker with camber, you did camber with rocker, and everybody was really kind of getting everything dialed in. And then all of a sudden, Never Summer said, hey, we've got this thing where there's triple camber. We literally have a board with 3 pockets of camber in it, and everybody thought it had to do more with the board and how it rides and how it sits and how it initiate turns and how it floats, but it actually had to do more with how the board actually digs into the snow. All that other stuff coming along with it, just a bonus. So right off the bat, Never Summer, they were the first company to do a hybrid where they did rocker and camber together. Their boards were traditionally a rocker in between your feet, and then they went camber into the nose and tail. This basically gave you the power where you needed it, bend your feet all the way to your contact points, but you had that nice, easy, catch-free feel. It also gave the board a tilting point, so it wanted to sit down a little bit better and sit better in powder so it would float better. And you really got all the benefits of a rockered board, but then you got all the benefits of a cambered board and all the power into it. But then when they went with the triple camber, essentially what they did is they took kind of that same idea where it was camber in the tail, camber in the nose, and it still had that rocker in between the feet. But what they did is they did a tiny little pocket of camber right in between your feet. So it's something where if you look at it just right, you can actually see that it is bent like that right here in between the feet. And you still get that big piece in the back and that big pocket in the front. So again, doesn't have to do with the, transitioning, the catch-free, the floaty. It doesn't have to do anything with that or that power or really along the length of the board. But what they did is they realized that with all the boards getting some sort of treatment to the side to add contact points, they said, hey, we can actually do that on the bottom of the board. And basically what it is it does the exact same thing as adding contact points to the side of the board, but by doing it to the bottom of the board, when you take the board and you put it on edge, those points are digging in directly from the bottom. And you're actually pushing them down into those harder, icier conditions and really digging them in from the bottom of the board. But most importantly, you got a nice smooth side cut. So you've got nice, easy turns. It's still initiating turns very, very easily. But again, when you're on edge and you push down on this thing, it locks like crazy no matter how hard the conditions are. And then also going back to how the board does initiate turns very, very easily. When you do a rocker in a board versus a camber and lift those tips up, whether you're doing it with a rocker or even if you're doing some 3D shaping, it does make for a board that doesn't want to be on edge all the time. So when you are riding it flat, it doesn't feel like it wants to jump on edge. But the cool thing is as soon as you tip it up on edge, it does initiate those turns nice and easy because those contact points are gradually digging into the snow. But again, they were able to leave that side cut nice and smooth, still give you that nice, easy, smooth transfer. But then along with that too, you're getting something that's releasing suction from the bottom of the board. It's adding dimension to the bottom of the board. And when you get out on some of those days that are some of those wetter, sloppier conditions, if you have a little bit smoother base on the bottom of your board, it can want to stick. It's kind of like trying to pick a piece of glass up off a wet counter. It can create suction. So again, this is adding more dimension to the bottom of the board, so it breaks that up. And when you are carving on this thing, you really do get a really good edge hold, and you really do get that nice, easy, smooth transfer, and you get a board that doesn't want to stick to the snow when you get it flat, and as soon as you roll it from edge to edge, it just wants to get up and go. And I can attest to this Nouku, this actually has their triple camber, which is a rocker dominant triple camber. If we set this thing down, you'll notice that the tips are actually lifted up. So it is very similar to their boards of past where it was rocker in the middle, camber in the nose and tail, and those tips were lifted up. So you do get a little bit of that extra float. But again, once you tip this thing up on edge, it grabs like crazy. I can tell you right now, this Nouku, I've never in my life carved harder on my heel side than on this board, which a lot of people think that if a board does have a rocker dominant to it, it can't carve hard, and it's just not true. And especially with the triple camber, it really does lock in. And then when we go to the boards like the Llama, which has their triple camber recurve, it's the same thing where we still have camber in the nose, camber in the tail, and that extra pocket of camber in between your feet. But this one is a little more camber dominant, where the middle of the board is lifted up and they got a little bit of flat up in the nose and tail. So you are getting that power that people like out of that traditional camber, but then by going to a little bit of that flat spot, when you do step on it, it lifts those contact points up. So again, you're getting that nice easy catch free feel, you're getting that smooth transition from edge to edge, but most importantly, you're getting that grip of that triple camber, and you're getting all those contact points on the bottom of your board. Again, it's really something that is kind of crazy, and a lot of people looked at it at first and just went, what the heck? And they kind of looked at it in the wrong kind of way. They looked at it as adding rocker, camber, adding profile to the board and giving it those benefits of, you know, catch free, floaty, the power along the length of the board. And it actually was there more for the edge hold. You are still getting those benefits of that power and that floatiness and everything when you're looking at boards like the Nouku that have the rocker dominant version, but they've added again to that cambered version because it works no matter what kind of profile you have on the board to really make these things dig like they're boards that are stiffer than they actually are. And like I was saying with this Nouku, how I have never carved harder in my life on my heel side edge, this Llama is their kind of park board. But the crazy thing about it is we were out one day and I was like, I'm gonna lay on this thing as hard as I can. I'm expecting the board to give out on me, but I'm gonna see how hard I can push it. And I went down to the bottom of one of the steepest runs and I cranked a turn and I just started giggling because the board didn't give out. I was expecting it to give out. And I think I have a clip that is actually just the carve that I took, and I'll try to throw that in the video if I've got it still. But it's pretty insane to actually see how hard I was able to carve on this board, even though this thing is a much, much softer park style board. And I really think that those two things, showing how hard this thing can carve with a rocker dominant bend and how hard this thing can carve with a softer flex, really attests to how well that triple camber does work.